Hello everybody, this is Hollywood Joe from Hollywood's World of Sports again, and I want to talk to you today about a breaking news report that happened earlier this afternoon. And for the first time since 1996, there will be no Hall of Fame ceremony this year. The Baseball Writers of America, could not come up with enough votes and enough percentage-wise of the votes to have anybody be in the Hall of Fame. Now, keep in mind that this year guys like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, and multiple other alleged steroid users were first time on the ballot. But that does not mean that other players should have been left off the Hall of Fame. You know, I'm going to read you the list here, and I'm going to read you how many votes each player got and how that translates into percentage points. A player needs at least 75% of the vote to gain election. So I'm going to read off the list to you. Be patient with me, and then I'll give you my thoughts once I'm done with that. So, first player on the list, Craig Biggio, 388 votes, which translates into roughly 68%. Jack Morris, 385 votes, which is 67.7%. Jeff Bagwell, 339 votes, which is 59.6%. Mike Piazza, 329 votes, which is 57.8%. Tim Raines, 297 votes, 52.2%. Lee Smith, 272 votes, 47.8%. Curt Schilling, 221 votes, 38.8%. Roger Clemens, 214 votes, 37.6%. Barry Bonds, 206 votes, 36.2%. Edgar Martinez, 204 votes, 35.9%. Alan Trammell, one of my favorite players from the Detroit Tigers, 191 votes, 33.6%. Larry Walker, 123 votes, 21.6%. Fred McGriff, 118 votes, 20.7%. Dale Murphy, 106 votes, 18.6%. Mark McGwire, 96 votes, 16.9%. Don Mattingly, 75 votes, 13.2%. Sammy Sosa, 71 votes, 12.5%. And then you have one of the biggest liars of them all, who got caught taking steroids a year after he testified in Congress, Rafael Palmeiro, 50 votes, which equals 8.8%. Now, there was others receiving votes that really don't even add up to percentage points. Bernie Williams received 19 votes. Kenny Lofton, 18 votes. Sandy Alomar Jr., 16 votes. Julio Franco, 6 votes. David Wells, 5 votes. Steve Finley, 4 votes. Shawn Green, 2 votes. And Aaron Sele with 1 lone vote. Now, you take away guys like Clemens, Bonds, Palmeiro, Sosa, and McGwire. Everybody I mentioned on that list deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I want to know what in the bloody hell is taking so long to get Jack Morris in the Hall of Fame. He is the most winningest pitcher of the 80s. Multiple World Series rings, multiple, no-hitters. And he's been retired for many, many, many years now. And the fact that a guy like Jack Morris, who pitched his heart out every single night for teams like the Tigers and the Twins, not being in the Hall of Fame, kind of disgusts me. And there's other guys out there like Trammell and McGriff and Mattingly and Bernie Williams. All those guys that didn't even get a percentage of the votes should be in the Hall of Fame. Because no, they didn't take steroids. They didn't use performance-enhancing drugs. And, you know, they played their heart out and gave 110% every night they went onto the field. So, for the writers, see what the writers should have did is instead of giving votes to the steroid users, they should have taken all those votes, if they were so against those guys using steroids being in the Hall of Fame, they should have taken all those votes and used them on those other players. So at least 5 or 6 very, very well-deserving players could have been in the Hall of Fame this year in 2013. And you know what? I kind of blame this whole debacle on baseball in general, because here's the thing. When baseball went on strike in, I think, 1995, it pretty much destroyed the game for a long time. The game was absolutely shattered and devastated. And what was the best way they could get popularity back into the game? Well, 1998 comes around, and you have one of the biggest home run battles in the history of baseball between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. McGwire ended with 70 home runs, and I believe Sosa ended with 63 or 64 home runs, both of them breaking Roger Maris's single-season home run record that stood at 61. But in the meantime, by breaking that record, they brought popularity and attention and a media presence back to baseball. So if you really think about it, you just can't blame the steroid era for all this happening. You got to go all the way back to 1995 when that last strike happened, because nobody cared about baseball. Attendance in baseball was down for a very, very long time after that. Nobody cared about the sport. Teams, small market teams like the Montreal Expos and Baltimore Orioles and teams of that nature royally got screwed. And, you know, those teams were never the same again for a long, long time. And this is the first year, I think, since that strike or shortly thereafter, that the Baltimore Orioles made the playoffs. And I believe this is the first time this year that the Washington Nationals made the playoffs ever since they moved out of Montreal. So, you know, I mean, like I said, you can blame the steroid users. Do I think it's wrong to use performance-enhancing drugs? Yeah, I do think it's wrong. But you know what? You got to look at it from the player's perspective. They were losing out on money. They were losing out on, you know, merchandise sales, whatever excuse you might want to use. And the players probably thought to themselves, okay, hey, let's take steroids and let's start hitting a crap ton of home runs. That'll gain attention. That'll get people talking. That'll get the media coming our way. So you just can't blame guys like Bonds and McGwire and Sosa, Palmeiro, Clemens. You can't really just blame it on those group of guys. You gotta blame baseball as a whole, because like I said, the strike in 95 hurt the game. And maybe using steroids was the only way those guys could bring back popularity to baseball, by hitting 60 plus home runs a year and just having outrageous numbers. You know, but like I said, there's other guys who kept clean, like a Mike Piazza and a Jack Morris and Edgar Martinez, Alan Trammell. The list goes on from the names I mentioned. So, you know, Cooperstown, it's empty this year. How to solve the problem? Well, why don't you create a separate wing called the steroid era and just induct the guys anyways? Because whether you like it or not, you can't rewrite history. You can't erase the history books. You can't take the numbers away that they had. They tried that with Pete Rose, but Pete Rose is still recognized as, you know, one of the greatest hitters that ever lived, even though he'll never be in the Hall of Fame. So, it's like I said, I think it absolutely sucks that there's no new players into the Hall of Fame this year. I think there's, 5 or 6 well-deserving players on that list I mentioned that belong in Cooperstown. And I really hope the writers pull their heads out of their asses, because I'll tell you right now, if it keeps going the way it's going, they're going to have to do what football does now, and they're going to have a fan vote on who gets in the Hall of Fame, because the fans get to determine one Hall of Fame member each year now. Because there's certain guys in the Pro Football Hall of Fame that weren't making it because of writers that should have been in there all along. So maybe that's what baseball has to go to. Maybe that's what all the sports should go to, have at least one fan voted member into the Hall of Fame each year. That's a great way to do it. I think that'll solve everybody's problem, so that there's at least one Hall of Fame member every year in every sport. Although I think, like I said, in baseball, there's about 5 to 6 guys that were on that list that deserve to be in there right now. So, with that being said, I know there's a lot of controversy about it. That's what I'm about. Controversy doesn't come without criticism. And again, thanks for tuning into Hollywood's World of Sports. Remember, it's your destination for all things sports. And remember to check out HollywoodsWorldOfSports.com. Thank you and have a good night.